Hi there, welcome to the Intro to Timeline tutorial. Here I'm going to run you through the basics of the timeline and a few of the more basic tracks. A little about the UI first. You can see me here using the play button on the timeline to play through this animation I have prepared on the screen. Alternately, I can also enter a direct frame I want and press enter to go to that frame. I can use the fit to window key to zoom out and fit the entire project into the timeline window and press the original size button to return it back to its normal size, or even zoom in and out manually. My favorite way though is to grab the edge of the time scrub and click and drag it so it gets longer and shorter while simultaneously zooming the timeline. If I hit music modify, that will give me some basic options for my background music. You can see my music in the music track below. Keys are an important part of the timeline. If I select a key in this transform track, I can use the arrow keys on the top left to automatically scroll to the next keyframe. You can also add a keyframe, which you'll learn more about later. Besides that, you have your standard copy, cut, paste, and delete tools for the keys. These also use the traditional hotkeys as well. On the left, I can open the various tracks for my props and actors by clicking the track list and finding the object I want there. I'm going to start off here with the flat basics. I'm opening all the various basic tracks for our character's hat here. First I'll show you transform. If I move ahead to frame 10, then move the hat off our character's head, you will see a green line follow behind it, as well as a keyframe will appear in the transform track. This key indicates a change in position. When I play back, you can see that between those two keys, the hat will move its course. Now I'll delete the transform key, which will cancel the animation, and use the flip tool on the same frame. Now you can see that when I scroll through the timeline, the hat will flip at that key in the flip track. The visibility track has switch keys that indicate whether an object is visible or not. If I go to another frame and use that function, you can see that the hat will suddenly appear and disappear. To demonstrate the link tool, I'm going to move my timeline forward and then my character. As you can see, the hat will get left behind. To link, I'll go back to frame 1, select my hat, and then the link tool, and then my character's head. Notice a switch key will appear in the first frame of the link track, and when I move my character around, the hat will stay with him now. That's because the objects are now linked. Opacity is a bit different from visibility because it uses regular keys instead of switch keys. I'll show you what that means. At frame 1, I'm going to set the hat's opacity down to 0. Then I'll skip ahead to frame 10 and set it up to 100. You can see now that when I scroll through that the hat will gradually appear and disappear. That's the opacity change. Next I'll show you how to create that project you saw at the beginning of this tutorial, and I'll teach you how to use the practical basic features of the timeline in the process. What I want to do first is open up my on-screen actors timeline tracks. To do that, I need to open up the track list and look under the actor category. As you can see, there are also tracks for project, camera, sound, and props. The two most important timeline sections for each character are the body motion and facial sections. Under both of these, you'll see transform and sprite tracks for each. I'll open up the facial transform and sprite tracks here because the first thing I'm going to do is demonstrate how sprite replacement affects the timeline. I'll go ahead to about frame 15 here and open the sprite editor to switch my character's left eye to a closed sprite. When I do this, you can see that a key will appear in the face sprite track as well as the left eye sprite track. These are called switch keys and are indicated by the horizontal line going through them. Because I didn't set an original key for my character, when I go back to frame 1, it'll still be closed. Let's open it by replacing it with a normal eye. So what I'll do next is go on to a future frame here and switch the eye back to a normal one to simulate a winking expression. When I do that, you can see once again that a switch key will appear in both tracks. I can move these keys around to change the sprite switch to different times as well. Now I have the motion key editor open as well as the body sprite and transform tracks. I'm going to create a slight head tilt and time it with my wink. First I need to go to the frame where my wink begins, which is indicated by the switch key. I'm going to use the pose tool to naturally tilt my character's head back slightly. When I do this, you'll see a keyframe appear in the body transform track. The body transform track indicates changes in position, which are indicated by single keys. You can see that another one will appear here when I return the head to a more forward position. I can also move the body transform key down a bit to create a slower return motion. I'll briefly show the flip track here. After I play back, I'll enter in a flip command which will flip my character to the other direction. You'll see that a key will also appear in the flip track. Easy enough, right? After my character flips, I'm going to make her walk across the screen. The two basic steps for a character walk are puppeteering and motion. First, I'll enter the puppeteering panel and find a suitable walking motion for my character. I can preview as many times as I want before to adjust the walk, then hit record and automatically record the character motion. You'll see that when I finish, a motion clip will appear in my character's motion track. This clip contains all the data for the walk. Now I want to zoom out a bit to see how long the clip is, so I can simply click the zoom out button on the timeline to get a bigger view. Now I've opened my transform track because I'm going to make my character move across the screen. I'm at the frame here at the end of my puppeteering motion, so at that frame I'll simply move my character forward, which will create a key in the transform track. The only problem when I play back is that my character sort of floats backwards at first because there are only two transform keys, which indicate a direct transition from one place to another. To fix this, I can go back to the original transform key and copy it, which will essentially copy that position data. I'm going to paste it right before my character begins walking so that the position change will begin at that point. You'll see something strange happen in the playback as my character will sort of float around first. This is because the default setting for the key transition is curved and not linear. If I double click on that keyframe and select linear transition, you'll see the problem will be gone as that transitional curve is no longer there. Now just like I did with the body puppeteering clip, I can also do the same thing for the face. I'm going to layer the facial puppeteering over the same area with the body puppeteering clip. Again, you can preview all of your facial profiles before selecting one and puppeteering with your mouse. I'm going to choose this one and start recording. The actions I make with my mouse will create real-time expressions on my character's face. After I'm finished, you'll see the clip appear in the facial motion track this time. Now when I play back, you'll see my character give a little smile as she walks by. To demonstrate the visibility and link sections, I'm going to bring in this animated sparkle prop. What I want to do is have her tiara sparkle after she finishes her walk. There are a couple of things I need to do for this. You'll see when I play it that the sparkle needs to be attached to her tiara. To do this, I'll simply select the sparkle, then use the link tool, and then select the tiara. I'll open up the timeline and close out all of the actor tracks now as I won't need them anymore. I'm going to open up the prop timeline section in the link, opacity, and visibility tracks. As you can see, there are switch keys at the beginning, which indicate that the sparkle is always visible and that it's always attached to the tiara now. I don't want the tiara to be sparkling all the time, so what I'll do is go back to frame 1 and turn the opacity for that prop all the way down to 0. I want the sparkle to begin right after she arrives at her destination, so what I'll do is go ahead to that area on the timeline first. Then bring the opacity up to 0 so it creates a keyframe, but it's still not visible. That retains the invisibility up to that point. I'll then go ahead a few frames and turn the opacity up to 100. I want to sustain that sparkle for a while, so when I go to the next frame ahead, I'll do the same thing but leave the opacity at around 98, so it will still create a keyframe. Then I'll proceed to go to the very end and turn off the opacity totally. Notice now that the sparkle fades in and out nicely during the playback. The visibility track does not change because this is only affected by the invisibility tool at the top toolbar, which will only make an item 100% visible or invisible. If I go back to the beginning and delete that first link key for the prop, then something else will happen. When my character finished her walk, then a star will appear in the night sky beside her because the prop stays in the same place. One more thing, I can also edit the motion tracks by clicking and dragging to make them smaller. This will make the motion faster and cancel the rest of the playback. I can make it longer as well to slow down the animation. You can also duplicate the same motion track easily by toggling the loop option instead of speed in the top of the timeline once your track is selected. This will simply just loop the clip over and over when you click and drag instead of lengthening it. So those are the simple functions of the timeline and its various keys. For more information on timeline editing, check out our advanced timeline tutorial.